Today, I want to talk about something that is lighting up as such an obvious key and code and crucial piece to success with development of any kind, whether it be personal or professional. Anything that you are trying to improve, make progress within, get yourself from some point A to point B, anything where you're aiming higher or further or better. There's something that's been coming through for me right now that I want to talk to and hit from multiple angles in this episode that just really feels like the holy grail perspective that makes this easy, but also to say it's obvious, it's going to be when I talk about it and illuminate it. But I also feel like it's something that's so easy to forget or get caught up in something other than. Okay, so enough circling around the thing. What I want to talk about is how important it is to not only be tuned into where we're trying to get to, like the potential comparison of how far we are from there, focusing on and visualizing what is this new place, this new level, this new embodiment that we want to get to. But that just as important, and I think so often minimized in relation to this eye on the prize fixation on where we want to get to, is being just as grounded in and anchored to where you are right now. The angles that I want to come at this around that really illustrate the point, because for me to say that, it's like, oh, duh, right? But when we really unpack this and the far reaching and broad scope, how many things this touches, how many things this is true for, I think it really illuminates the power and the value of this thing and why I feel so called to speak about it today. I want to look at it both from a kind of inner game, personal growth, personal development angle, also from a more practical, money oriented or gamified, point driven, more like that kind of next leveling when it comes to success. I also want to ground it with some very specific examples that have been up for me and my clients that I want to share with you, either to support you directly if you can see yourself in these examples, or to offer a mirror for you to triangulate and connect the dots to something maybe you've been trying to call in, something you've been trying to make happen for yourself, somewhere you've been trying to get to, something you've been trying to achieve that has felt like it has been eluding you. I suspect that there is something here for you in remembering to apply this important piece of being just as grounded in where you are now to get where you want to go. I want to start this out with more of a feeling space of times that I've landed in a very specific orientation toward my relationship to the thing that I want, the thing that I'm calling in, that ends up just collapsing time. When I end up getting what I want, when the shift happens, when the stars realign, when something shifts so that finally I get what I've been calling in or asking for, I can always think back not long right before to having landed in a very particular feeling state that I think really illustrates the point that I'm trying to make here of the more meaningful, more mysterious force behind why this is so powerful. I have the example of that there was a pretty long amount of time that I was starting to, thanks biological clock, really fantasize about family and children. I wasn't in a relationship at the time. I was single. I hadn't met my husband yet, which, if you know me and know that story, that all happened very quickly once I did meet him. But it was just something that I was really holding in my awareness, my desires, my inner world. And as I'm sure you can probably relate to, for something that felt really big. It felt like a really big ask, especially relative to the ways I had been in relationship before, the kind of version of my life I had been living. It just didn't seem to fit, but the desire was there and the seed of the wish had been planted. I had gone through various stages with this that were like some of them ended up feeling like it was like a process of push and pull, basically, where sometimes I felt the longing or the frustration of the proximity from, or any number of ways that I just didn't feel fully confident in and aligned with that ask and that it was on its way to me. There's different ways that we can talk about this space, this feeling space that I'm going to mention. Although talking about them, similar to mantras when there's no actual behaviors to back them up, are just baseless. There's a state that you actually get to that makes it feel so much more true than just saying things like, it's on my way to me, calling in this timeline, it is so. Whatever your version of speaking your belief and trust and confidence in that thing is coming, there's a very different state and place that we get to when we actually feel it. This example that I want to offer is that honestly, and to the point that I'm making, it really was so far from a striving or a longing. In fact, when this moment happened in this example, I wasn't even thinking about it a moment before. There was no, at that moment, conscious striving or trying. An awareness lit up in me. And I suddenly noticed I was driving and I was in the front seat of my car. And all of a sudden, I felt this profound sense of peace wash over me. This is another one where what words do we put to this? But in every instance of this place for me, it starts with I just feel so relaxed and settled. Feelings that come along with I'm exactly where I need to be, when I need to be, zero resistance to my current reality, to life, to the present moment. Just this pure, absolute alignment with the present moment and feeling that in my body. The next thing I know, I sense this little boy sitting behind me in a car seat and a husband sitting next to me in the passenger seat. Again, this was not something that I had actively visualized or had put effort into visualizing. It was just all of a sudden, I got to this feeling state that's familiar to me. The next thing I knew, I was having this feeling, sensual hallucination of a son and a husband in the car with me. I even looked in the rearview mirror and anyways, it's familiar to me too, to this space that I get to between sleeping and waking, where I kind of half hallucinate things and I have to check if they're real. It's like that, but in my waking life, obviously I was driving, I was fully awake and aware. It wasn't long after that before I met my husband. And then 3 months into our relationship, we were pregnant. And then 10 months later, my son was here. I have had plenty of moments since of having my husband in the passenger seat and my son in the back seat on the right side, exactly where I saw him in that vision. These are the kind of moments that I absolutely live for. I am not one to try to pin down the magic behind what's happening when this happens. However, I do know there was some serious magic at play, and this isn't the only time that I've experienced this. There's like a connection between two moments in time, a future time, a timeline where what I want is actually real, and a present time where I am so peacefully settled into exactly where I am right now. Nothing in me it's like this space that I find I eventually get to when I'm calling something in after I've gone to these other places of yearning and longing and impatience and frustration. Eventually, I just let that all go. It's like I have to go through all that first, though. Then on the other side of it, I eventually get to a place of absolute peace and acceptance that it's not here yet. And it's not like I'm willing it to be, it's coming and I know it is. it's just, I get to this really peaceful place of, well, of course it is. There's no resistance to the timing, to that it's here or not right now, to anything at all in this very moment. It is when I finally arrive at that place that there is some kind of a real, felt, embodied connection between present and future time that brings that to me very quickly after. The reason I wanted to tell this story first is just to ground us here together. Hopefully, and probably as I was telling this story, you thought of a version and an example in your life of where this has happened. Maybe multiple, but maybe you didn't make the connection that that was that final catalyst, that final missing piece state moment experience that had to happen before you were able to actually receive what you've been asking for. Now we're going to go into the more logical, practical side of different areas of life and business where this ends up happening and working. Obviously, in my example of family and children, that's like a big deal, milestone, rite of passage kind of thing. But this actually happens all the time. And it's especially important to be aware of in the areas where you really need to keep this top of mind. You need to be able to be in those two places at once to support the kind of manifestation engine that makes momentum possible. Obviously, ultimately, I'm going to be grounding this into your relationship with money, with scaling, with calling in more revenue to meet bigger lifestyle desires and investment needs. But that's not the only place this happens. And if you're a growth oriented person, this is something you have an awareness in every sector of your life of where you would like to go and get to, of where you're aiming next. But before I zoom in on examples, let's actually zoom out to something that touches on this around what makes each of us unique and different, and a way to understand how both of these are true simultaneously at the same time for any area of your life, anything that you're trying to grow, improve, evolve yourself inside of. And that is the difference between the optimal cheat code, most aligned way for you to be with any part of yourself and in any life area based on the reflection of your birth chart, based on your astrology chart, based on your astrology, and where you are right now. I think that this is one thing that doesn't get really specifically named and pointed to, that creates a little bit of distrust, or just part of why astrology to some is seen as woo instead of the incredible ancient tool that it is. And that's that, yeah, your chart is a snapshot of the energetic matrix that imprinted upon you the moment that you took your first breath. The energetic home base that was the first experience your body had of certain energy currents moving through and grounding below you, moving through and grounding into your reality that would then become your codes or energetic signatures for how energy wants to move through you and ground into your reality. But that said, obviously, you are not the same person that takes your first breath as the version of you that takes your last breath, or any of the many versions of you that exist in between. So this thing that I'm talking about of being aware of where you're headed and where you are right now, this is something very interesting to overlay astrology over and the tools that we have available. On the one hand, there are definitely clues to the scope and the territory that you might meander through when you are less or more conscious, or more or less further along developed in any given area of your life. My background is in evolutionary astrology, so that is my jam. We can see in a chart what it might look like for you to be on one end of the spectrum or the other, and then obviously a life lived is going to meander throughout that space and territory. But my favorite way to use astrology that's the most efficient and practical, especially as a business owner and for non astrologers, which is why I frame astrology this way, even though I'm an astrologer myself, is to really isolate the codes that show you what your optimal way is for each of these planets, these parts of you reflected with planets, luminaries, and points. What is the energetic signature? How does that want to move through and embody through you? And where? What life area does that want to ground into? So that you complete that circuit for yourself, so that you feel the most fulfilled, so that you are the most successful, so that you feel the most in flow, and so that you feel the most serendipitously pronoia like supported by the universe, so that you feel like you are just magic, which is really being in the right place, right time, being aligned with the energetic environment that you're situated in. So, in this way, we just looked at, through the lens of astrology, those two parts. It is really easy and effective to look to your astrology chart to understand the optimal codes, your optimal way of being with each part of yourself in each area of your life, of being the most yourself and the most aligned with your purpose and your energetic wiring, essentially. But knowing these can sometimes be a trap for people if you're then comparing yourself stressed out or anxious around how far you are from that, when that's really just half the equation. That tool is there and available to give us half of the equation with those optimal codes. The other part of it is such a beyond your chart kind of place that is just you being absolutely at peace with where you are right now, how far along you are right now, what version of yourself you are right now in the present moment. My first example, and I want to share with you something that I've been working on that I'm so excited about that inspired me to talk about this today, is that yes, I am all about decoding the cosmic cheat codes that are available to you to run your business in the most fulfilling and successful way. But that said, especially when it comes to your relationship with money, because money is a materially manifest version of energy flowing. It has so many keys and codes and clues to help us understand where we're at in general. If you didn't listen to a recent episode, Money as a Mirror, that's an excellent one on this topic. But the reason that money is such a great example of what I'm talking about here today as well is because when you really get on track for right relationship with money, it actually isn't a certain place that you get with it. There's not an end of the road. It's getting into an orientation with it where you are reliably able to grow your revenue to meet your growing desires and vision for your life and associated costs. It's easy to see why it's so important to be okay with where you are right now. If you are only going to be able to get to each next level, which should be like stair steps or rungs on a ladder, level after level after level, if you're only going to be able to be in that flow to create that direction, that momentum, that ability, that capacity, and that reliability, you need to make it a normal state for you to also be absolutely okay with where you are right now. One thing that I find is people inside of Cosmic Currency, when they use the tools that I provide there to get super crystal clear what that next level version of your life and business is that you're aiming for, how it'll make you feel, really getting inside of that desire space that is motivating you, and to also get super clear exactly how much you need to get there. Sometimes this brings up a lot for people, not even at where they're headed. For a lot of people, it's really getting honest with what your bills are right now and realizing that you're not there and you don't actually bring in enough money to pay your bills. Whatever it is, often when you first start looking that clearly at where you're heading, where you want to be, whether it's to meet your bills right now or that next level that you are aiming to grow toward, Oftentimes, it brings up some not so fun and slightly funky feelings, sometimes not so slightly funky feelings. It can bring up a lot around that you're not where you want to be. This is something that passes. It does become a new normal. You at least get more comfortable for sure if you start leaning in and looking at those things on the regular. It doesn't have that shock value that it maybe first does if that's not something that you normally have in your awareness consistently. However, wherever you are relative to your relationship with that half of the equation, it is so important that as you are allowing yourself not only to tune into what you want, but and especially to expand your capacity for envisioning how far and how big you want to get and go. You have to be able to be okay with where you are right now. And it can't just be a mantra that you say. Another excellent episode, if you haven't listened already, is money mantras as gaslighting. Because if you're just trying to tell yourself something that you don't believe and feel and know in your bones, you're basically gaslighting yourself. And that is not an effective strategy. You need to feel in the depth of your being, bones, and knowing that where you are right now, money wise or otherwise, is exactly where you are meant to be and how far along on the ultimate bigger scope path of your life. You are exactly where you're meant to be right now. That's not just a trite thing to say. That is an orientation, a commitment to this principle, knowing that to get where you want to go, you have to be okay where you are. It's not just a consolation prize. Being present in the moment is stepping out of that timeline, that 4D, that other perspective where you can see where you want to go and where you've been, and isolating yourself in this endlessly trucking forward present moment. You are in one of those right now, and then right now, and then right now. And this one is exactly every bit of your circumstance is exactly where on that path you are meant to be right now. In the most reductive way to settle our minds that might be thinking otherwise, that has a tendency to have anxiety about the future, anxiety about the past, and fear of the future, is that you wouldn't be where you are right now if you hadn't been where you were. If it were not for your past trailing behind you, you wouldn't be where you are now. If it weren't for the future that you are aiming toward, you wouldn't have progressed in the way that you have now. You are poised in this present moment thanks to where you've been and where you are aiming. I'm going to zero in on the example now that inside Cosmic Currency, we go into formally cosmic cash codes, the parts of your chart that show us what your ideal, optimal relationship is with money flow to be as abundant as possible, to feel as fulfilled as possible, to be as successful as possible, to love what you do and make bank doing it. I know these are big claims, but the alternative is not being aligned with your design, and that's not how it works when you're there. Knowing these is crucial for your success, makes it the whole journey that much more fun, helps you to avoid doing things other people's way, straying from your path. But that said, and especially when it comes to money, because people hold so much shame and heaviness and wounding and obstacles in the way of getting to the optimal ideal place they would like to be with their money game. Maybe you can relate. And that's why I created the Cosmic Money Style Quiz, formerly the Money Attachment Style Quiz, that may sound more familiar to you if you've already taken that. First of all, let me just gush for a second. So, formerly had a different name, formerly had different archetypes that described the result that you were, which attachment style you are with money, which, again, to ground this into what we're talking about here, this is that other side. Whereas the astrology codes of your chart show you your potential with money and abundance, this quiz shows you where you are right now and your proximity from secure attachment, aka financial security, aka alignment with the cosmic codes of your chart, which is exactly why I created this quiz, because I want you to be able to root into and be aware of and in relationship to where you are right now, because that half of the equation matters just as much. And that's why I just put so much love, creativity, time into upgrading the entire experience of this quiz. If you did already take the quiz, you likely, by the time this episode is airing, got an email giving you all the new goods, cluing you into the new direction so that you don't miss out on all of this new stuff that's included for people that now take the quiz. If you haven't seen that, go look for emails from Lauren at cosmicbizwitch.com. But you guys, for anyone that has not taken the quiz, oh my goodness. The archetypes now, the results are just so, oh gosh, what they evoke. They evoke something totally different. You know what? Let me just tell you what the archetypes are. Sorry for the spoiler, ruining that moment of surprise for those of you that are going to take it, but it's just part of my gush right now. If you land as disorganized with money, you are the untethered visionary. If you land as anxious with money, you are the vigilant nurturer. If you land as avoidant with money, which is most of the people that come to me for support, you are the sovereign dreamer. And if you are one of the few that are already in a secure place with money, you are the grounded builder. The shifts are profound. If you took this quiz before, you know how different these feel. My intention with them is really to connect you with understanding the superpower in a sensationalized way, but in a more neutral and grounded way, the way we've been talking about. Just a really settled acceptance of wherever you are. Did any of those sound anything but awesome? Good. They're not. They all are incredible places to be. They're wherever you are. Whichever one you get is wherever you are. Getting to the practical side of it, when we actually sit where we are right now, besides energetically creating an opening that actually makes it possible to get where we want to go, we actually get so much of what we need to get there. We are able to get information around how far are we from where we want to be? What does that path look like? What are the steps that I need to take now that I know where I am to get where I want to go? I love the example and metaphor to ground this as well of GPS, that in order to use maps to get anywhere, we need to give it two pieces of information. We need to tell it where we're headed, and we need to tell it where we are right now. If we can do that, it will give us all kinds of different routes. If we get on track, it tells us how to get back on track. Y'all, life is like this too. As long as you are just as rooted in where you are right now and aware of where that is, your point A, as where you're trying to go, and being super clear around what that destination, that point B is, life like GPS will give you so many different routes to get there and redirect you if you get off course. I actually use this metaphor really heavily in cosmic currency with one of the tools that we use in there called your WPS, your wealth positioning system. That does exactly what we're talking about here. It makes it possible for you over and over again to reorient yourself, just like you would with GPS, from where are you right now to where are you headed. And then the where that you're headed becomes eventually the new where you are now, and you set a new course. And honestly, yeah, for compliance and other excellent reasons, you need to be keeping records for your business. And I have really accessible ways to do that, tools that I provide in Cosmic Currency that are also tailored to how you are based on your astrology, because you need to be doing it your way for it to work, or more importantly, for you to keep doing it, right? For you to want to keep showing up. If it's like every other money system you tried to use, you probably aren't using it anymore. So we create systems that really work for you. But a big part of going on the transformational journey that is Cosmic Currency is taking this quiz and finding out where you are right now so that you actually know the scope of the journey. Then once inside, and this is my other example, is how important when it comes to your money it is to Know what's up with your numbers, where you are now and where you're headed. I hope that I did you a service by going through this topic in the order that I did. First, grounding it, rooting it, expanding it into your understanding of the magic, the mystery and the magic behind how this works. Ultimately, now rooting it into the practical. Knowing your numbers is that magic for you and your business. It's the same magic. And it's what makes it possible for you to be really clear both from a feeling state and from a numbers place, exactly what you need to be bringing in right now and at the next level you're aiming for. Another example, though, outside of money, to really drive the point home that this is literally how growth happens in any area, is think about healing. Think about some of the more trauma related, pattern oriented shifts that you've been able to make in your life. Was it possible to get where you are now without first having a visceral, very real experience of having the ultimate compassion and acceptance for where you were before that shift was possible? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Or think about other people in your life and the space that you've been able to hold. Think about partners that you've had, relationships that you've been in where you weren't accepting someone where they were with you. And they were never able to change. And then think about ones that you've been in and experiences that you've had with other people where you genuinely feel compassion and acceptance for where they are right now and the space that that has created for them to be able to evolve and grow into the version of them that you knew was possible. It works like that for them. It works like that for you. And it works like that inside your business with any skill you're trying to develop or with any earning level you are trying to reach. Okay, I'm bringing this to an end. If you have not taken my quiz yet, I'm actually really glad when you go and take it now. Not only are you going to get your result, you're going to get an 8-page, beautiful, super helpful, value packed PDF guide that is your blueprint to get to financial security, secure attachment with money, or if you're already there and that's your result, how to let that be the foundation, the launch pad to where you're going next. You're also going to get a personal voice note, which I like to call voices, and are the bedrock of the way that I interact with clients, with anyone these days via Telegram. So I'm sending one of those your way based on your results. And oh my goodness, so much more. Anyways, go take the quiz, find out what your attachment style is with money, the archetype that I've fleshed out for you to really be able to own and accept exactly where you are right now and start to make your way toward financial security and to be able to play your money game in a way that actually feels awesome. You can go to cosmicbee.link/quiz. After you get your result, reply to one of my emails. Tell me how it landed for you. I would love some feedback around the new direction of the Cosmic Money Style Quiz.